We have the holidays, post-holidays, winter depression, or these tough economic times. We all likely know someone suffering from some form of depression. Therese Borchard is an author from Annapolis, and her new book, Beyond Blue, Surviving Depression and Anxiety and Making the Most of Bad Genes. This book examines people living with severe mood disorders. And you know, one thing I just said to you is, how was it for you to put what happened to you, what you suffered in your book? Because a lot of people are very hush-hush about this. They know people suffer from depression, but nobody wants to talk about it.
And that's part of the problem, I think. I think that's part of the reason I wrote the book, in essence, to save lives, because my aunt, my mother's sister, took her own life when I was 16. Wow. And I was close to taking my own life. And had it not been for a friend who sort of barged in and said, you need to get into the hospital, and sort of, you know, really confronted me with it, I don't know if I'd be here.
What happened with you? How did you know it just wasn't, wow, I'm down in the dumps this week, things are just crumbling around me, or depression? How did you know the difference?
Well, there was sort of a cascade of effects. I think depression is really complicated, and one person's isn't necessarily another. For me, I think the sleep deprivation of having my first kid. He only slept 3 hours a night for about 5 years.
Wow. Wow. Well,
yeah.
You need a medal for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that will take anybody to the hospital. You know, I mean, I think it's a form of torture in China or something like that. But you know,
so we joke about it. Were these baby blues? I mean, it's been documented a lot with Brooke Shields and what she went through.
I think part of it was definitely part hormonal, because I also have a pituitary tumor, and that developed during this time too. But I think the devastation in your brain that's caused by the chronic sleeplessness and the isolation of those early childhood, especially because I had always been a person who'd gotten a lot of feedback and positive stimulus from my job, and I you know, dove into stay-at-home motherhood because I thought that was the right thing to do. But I think the isolation combated by the chronic sleep deprivation was too much. Plus, in my genes, as I said in my book, I come from a family that it wouldn't take much to sort of nudge you over into the severe.
There's a family history.
Right,
of those
there
problems.
is. And so,
what kind of thoughts went through your head on your most down day?
I couldn't stop thinking of taking my own life, because that only gave me peace. I could not get peace. Nothing else gave me peace.
When you had these thoughts, did you tell your husband? Did you tell your best friend, your sister, anybody?
I did. I told those around me, but you know, I had been saying it for 6 months, and so I think everybody thought I wouldn't take my life because I had been voicing this desperation for 6 months. And
did they just think you were joking? Because some people say, you know, oh, you know, if I could, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And they're sarcastic about it.
I don't think that people think those that voice the frustration, those that talk about suicide, will actually commit suicide because they're saying it. I think they think that those people are somehow safer. But the stats say that that's not right. The people who are talking about killing themselves do, in fact, kill themselves. You know, and that's why you need to initiate the conversation. You need to get out there. You need to ask. I think what would have been most helpful for me would have been support with my children, so I could sleep. You know, and I should have hired someone early on so that I could sleep. But again, I was trying to be the martyr mom.
At that point, you had a newborn. You have 2 children, right?
I have 2 children.
So was this
the first one didn't sleep, and so by the time the second one came, I was sort of a mess. And so I think it just deteriorated from that point. But looking back, I mean, I think mothers that are prone to depression really need to get support underway before the baby's born.
Were you too worried to speak out to people because of what they might think about you? Yeah. I mean, I spoke out to my family and to my very close friends. But yeah, I mean, when you pick up your kid from preschool and some mom says, "How you doing?" you're not going to give them the details of your psyche that day, right? Because, you know, she's going to think you're a freak, you know. Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, and so I think, you know, we all know somebody who's depressed, and I think we could really maybe save a life by saying, hey, you know, what's going on? Is there anything I can do to relieve help? I mean, think about all the friends that we know who are on bed rest or things like that going on. You know, you give them a lasagna, you say, hey, can I take the kids for a day? What stressors can I help you remove?
Just some kind of help so they can have some time to themselves.
And I think they feel like you care at that point too, whereas when you have depression, it's almost like a leprosy, you know, of people like, you know,
yeah, they
all
don't
she
want
does
to
is
deal
cry.
with it. They're worried about it, but they don't know how to deal with it.
Right.
So how did you deal with it? You said a friend kind of gave you that kick in the butt that said, you need to get help. What kind of help did you get? Where'd you go?
Well, in my case, it was sort of, it was a lot of help. I went through 7 psychiatrists to find the right one. I think that you absolutely need the right doctor. You need to figure out what is going to help you. For me, it was a combination of eating, sleeping, eating the right food, sleeping. It was a medication combination that was right for me. So I think with everybody, it's different, but you can't stop until you get that program that works for you, that treatment.
One thing I want to touch on before we go, and your book touches on it, the date January 24th. You describe it as the perfect storm. Explain what you mean. It's coming up. We need to know what you're talking about.
Well, the statistics say that January 24th is the day that people are most depressed because, or that all the sort of the perfect storm, because your debts come in from Christmas. Your resolutions, if you don't have a life coach, are usually shot by that point. And, you know, people have just had it with the winter. It's gray, you know, all of the sunlight taken away. It does tend to influence your circadian rhythms and your hormones, and your vitamin D is depleted. You know, it is sort of the perfect storm.
Be a Debbie Downer day, as they call it. But beyond that, if you feel that January 24th kind of day prolonging itself to a week, to more than that, where you don't feel like talking to anyone, what would you say to do?
Therapists say about 6 weeks, but I would say, you know, first start with your diet, with exercise, with the things that you can control. And if you're, you know, especially if you're having thoughts of death, you know, definitely get help as soon as possible.
Talk to someone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's different cognitive behavioral techniques that you can work that are helpful. But, you know, again, if you're thinking of death, if you're having severe thoughts, severe symptoms of that, then I really think you need to go and work with a doctor.
Therese, thanks for coming in and sharing.
Thanks.
And once again, the name of the book, it comes out tomorrow, Beyond Blue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next on the show, more on the gun trouble for the Washington Wizards and Gilbert Arenas. Find out what happened between him and a fellow teammate. And cupcakes on the move. We'll meet the couple behind the traveling treats. They come to your curb with this. This is just great. We're going to talk to them in a second. And email us. We want to hear from you. We'll be right back.